Hey folks, Captain Mike here from Hogy Lure Company. And for today's Hogy how-to, I want to talk about sea bass fishing here on Cape Cod. Now it's June, which means the sea bass fishing is pretty good. Now it's slack tide, but the good thing about sea bass is if you get right on top of them and use the right presentation, you can pretty much catch them at all stages of the tide. Now, is the fishing better when the tide's moving? Yes. But can you have a good day at slack tide? Also yes. So the approach today is that we're going to be drifting over structure. Now we're in the area where we know there's sea bass, but we relied on the Navionics chip in my Garmin device to locate good structure. And today the good structure was defined by some rocks we could identify on our chart plotter. So what we did was make a series of drifts over the structure, and once we stopped getting fish, or once we started getting smaller fish, we would bring up our lines and repoint our drift. Now the technique we were using today was bouncing jigs on the bottom. Now we were close to slack tide with not a lot of wind, so we didn't have any difficulty holding bottom. Now the jigs I have here are the Hogy Groundfish Biki Jigs, and they're designed to look like a crab. Now one thing I know from years and years and years of sea bass fishing, some of the bigger sea bass I've caught over the years have coughed up either crabs or even baby lobster on my deck. So whenever I'm sea bass fishing, I always like a jig that replicates a crab. And these Groundfish Biki Jigs do that very well. Now I have them rigged two different ways, but the one commonality between the two is no bait. And with the beaky hair and the flash and the very detailed color patterns, you do not need bait with these jigs. Can you put it on? Sure. If you're a neat freak like me on a boat and don't want to use bait, you're going to catch just as many fish. But I mentioned I rigged them two different ways. One is I've tied directly to the line and just bouncing on the bottom. Now that's my favorite, most simple way to fish, just a lot less going on. But there are times when they're not super stacked up, and having the Groundfish Biki Teasers above the jig will add extra attraction and extra commotion, and also speed up catching your limit. So as you can see, there's a system going on with these teasers, the Biki Jig, the Biki Rig teasers, and the Groundfish Biki Jig. It's a little bit of a tongue twister, but what these things are also are dynamite fish catchers, and you get all kinds of action with the bait thumping along on the bottom. Now when the fishing's hot and heavy, I prefer the naked jig, but when you need a little bit of an extra edge, certainly upgrade your jig with these Biki Teasers. Now today we shot a sea bass video, but these jigs and these rigs are also great for large scup, tautog, and also fluke in these waters. Now here's the outfit we're using today. This is our Hogy System 7-foot Inshore medium power spinning rod. It's a little bit of a reoccurring theme in all our spring fishing videos. This is the rod I use for schoolie fishing, inshore ground fishing for tautog early in the season, scup and sea bass, and then later on in the season, inshore fluke. It's also my albie rod in the fall, and the striper rod I probably use 30% of the time. So it's a very handy, very fun, very parabolic and forgiving outfit to use. Plenty of fun when ground fishing for these striped bass. Now it's the same reel and same line combination that I have on most of my trips. I have 25-pound test braid, and in this case a 20-pound test fluoro leader tied direct to the jig, and just a nice versatile setup. Now one thing I'll add, rig like this with this jig, if you are in a rip and you see stripers chasing on squid, don't be afraid to cast this jig in too. Catches all the bass. Now the takeaway here is always have some groundfish jigs and teasers in your mesh crate, because you never know what you're going to find on the bottom. And in today's case, really saved our butts with some awesome fish we could bring home tonight for dinner.